Hi, and welcome back to my book reading. Where we left off was quite heavy. It's about the Malleus Maleficarum. Anyway, one of the most interesting sidelights on history is the fact that this book, which did so much to give the wrong sort of power to the wrong sort of people, and which was in any case written by men of dubious morals, if of impeccable scholastic standing, in support of the then weakening Catholic faith, should have been so strongly embraced by the Protestants that, for cruelty and bigotry, their own witchcraft persecutions often left those of the Inquisition in the shade. For sure, the subsequent literature on witchcraft demonism quickly became stereotyped. All too often, it consists, as for example in the work of the witchcraft judge Baudin, of sensational and even salacious case histories revealed in connection with the supposed study of witchcraft trials, in which the exploits or supposed exploits of the poor wretches undergoing trial and torture are set out in macabre and imaginative detail as depraved palate ticklers. Even so, the tastes and values of the Malleus are still evident in almost all these books. It is difficult for a modern writer to summarize the medieval Christian legalistic view of the demons. To judge from the literature, it seems that there is nothing that the demons cannot do in their attempts to bring the world to chaos. If one can imagine all the different powers and terrors ascribed to the demons in all the previous cultures which have contributed to the growth of our Western civilization, lumped together into one awesome and awful personification, then this is the devil of Kramer and Sprenger in the Hexenhammer. That's a Christian construct. The Lucifer of Dante, set in his lake of ice, is a pussycat in comparison with the tiger that these two Dominicans set loose on the world. Monseigneur. I was once examined by a Dominican monk. I did find it odd at the time. Fortunately, however, it is not within the brief of this book to look into the witchcraft literature, for all it is replete with a complex and often horrendous demonism. There is not such a great leap from late medieval demonology to the modern forms as might be thought. The serious occultists, such as Madame Blavatsky and Rudolf Steiner, have presented a new demonology, but this has not yet entered into the stream of our civilized thinking. The popular mind is still enmeshed in the old patterns of thought. Modern demonism, as it manifests in the complex and somewhat unpleasant rites of satanic churches or in the many amateur and even quite professional sabbats of our own day, has more ancient roots than is generally supposed. It is quite easy to trace the demonology of many modern cults to such figures as Aleister Crowley and to those who formulated the various orders linked with the Golden Dawn towards the end of the last century. But most of the demons and rituals linked with this order, to which Crowley belonged for a while, go back a few decades to the popular occultism of Alphonse Louis Constant, 1810 to 1875, who worked under the name of Eliphas Levi. You may have heard that one. And delighted in furnishing diabolical seeming images which were almost as inaccurate as they were tasteless. Levi took his demons from such 15th century occultists as Trithemius and from the Enochian literature, but more often than not, he confused them or used them for the wrong purposes. In turn, we know that Trithemius had his second Dadian beings, which so excited Levi, even though he copied their general name down wrongly. From Peter Urbano, who lived in the 13th century and who in turn had taken them from Arabic manuscripts. These had taken their names and periodicities from Gnostic sources. We see then that the modern demons have their roots in a very ancient earth, for the names of the demons around Levi's tasteless magical designs go back to pre-Christian literature. So, Crom is your god, not the Starry Wisdom cult. We may not be surprised to learn that such films as Rosemary's Baby or The Exorcist, which their romantic notion of demonism, are rooted in modern practices of witchcraft. However, the names are not so modern as is generally believed, and we need to look into texts at least a couple of thousand years old if we wish to reach into the origins of the ideas expressed within them. At the very beginning of this introduction, I observed that the main beliefs relating to the demons were that they were usually invisible, yet at times might become visible, that they might be consciously or accidentally conjured, that they might also be exorcised, and that they might satisfy the desires of a commanding magician by means of diabolic pact. These ancient beliefs are precisely those which are expressed in modern witchcraft literature, in the many films which take diabolic themes as their money spinners, and in a whole plethora of popular paperback novels which pass under the popular title of occult. Remember, if it's pulp, it's pop. If it's pulp, it's mass appeal. The old grimoires have been tarted up like mutton dressed as lamb, rewritten and re-illustrated, issued sometimes in calfskin bindings with full colour plates and fancy-sounding titles. Yet the demonic material is much the same as it has been for some 1,000 years. The orthography of demonic names is a puzzle to those who live in modern times, when it is taken for granted that a single sound should have a single form of representation, a consistent spelling. The demons appear to eschew this simple limitation on their freedom and disguise themselves in a multitude of different spellings. This is only to be expected, since virtually all the demons had names before there was an English language, and long before there was any scholastic attempt to introduce a standard orthography. A good example of an extraordinary variety of spellings may be seen in the single word Baildon, which is not actually a demonic word, but the name of a Yorkshire town, manor and family, each of which goes back to the days of the conquest. In the 19th century, it was suggested that the word Baildon was from the demonic name Baal or Bel. Not so foolish a suggestion as might be assumed, since the moors around the village were scattered with evidence of what was then taken to represent druidic activity, in the form of incised stones, earthworks, ancient burials, and stone circles. An assumption that the Druids, or those who lived in this area in former times, were concerned with the worship of Baal was sufficient to warrant the connection between the village and the demon. Writing in 1845, J.M.N. Coles proposed that the name might be derived from the same one that gave us the Beltan of the May Day festivals, on the grounds that the hillside upon which the town stands might have been a place where sacrifices to Baal were made. Christopher, we're all over you. Christian Bale. However, The historian of this village and family, W. Paley, rightly rejects this demonic origin for the name, but lists 3 different spellings for the place in Domesday Book alone, and a further 60 different orthographies from the 11th century to the present time. It is interesting to note that the first half of the words in this extensive list gives Baal, 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 Beel, Bel, and Baal. All these, along with the other spellings, are found also among the variants used in different grimoires to denote the single demon we list here as Baal. Clearly, it would be tiresome to give 10 or more variant spellings for each of the demons, and in an attempt to introduce order into this pandemonium of words, I've used only the forms which occur most frequently in the more used of demonic texts. Now we have illustrations here. Each period produces demons which reflect its own ethos and prejudices. By the 18th century, with the onset of a materialistic view of the universe, the demons were regarded as figments of depraved imagination. For example, when Hogarth wished to satirize the Methodists, he invented elves. No. He portrayed demons in a very corporeal form, as in the detail below, which shows a horned demon whispering into the ear of a slave sleeping in a church. By the beginning of our present century, the demons were regarded as so much decoration, as imaginative creations. As for example, in the illustrations to Ghost Faust, right, which are these two at the top, that's largely back then. I think that'd be designed for a play. Ghost Faust, right, by Harry Clarke, 1925. Few modern people believe in the reality of demons, but regard them as a source of entertainment. This attitude has been perpetuated in the demonological literature, film, and video culture of our present age. The esotericists conversant with the aims of the demons realize that the demons themselves are very contented with this situation, for they can do their work more effectively if people believe they do not exist. Yeah, there you go. I was wondering where the devil was. It's tiny little devil. They're the congregation in church, but they're not paying attention. So what's happening? Well, these are like napping. They're like, ooh, what are they doing? I don't know. There's a gift being exchanged and a bit of a moray. They're too busy singing shit. Nah, these guys are just sort of dozing off. And anyway, but there's a devil. That's why. That's why. Not because it's boring. It's because the devil's in the church. How'd that get in there? I thought it was hallowed ground. Huh? Yeah. Uh, Finish that page. Oh, and that is the end of the introduction. If the eye could perceive the demons that people the universe, existence would be impossible. The demons are more numerous than we are. Talmud. And then that's the start of the Dictionary of Demons. Starts with Amon, see Amon, then Arbak, see Adank, Abaddon, perhaps nominally Abaddon, a name given to a demon of evil war in the confused demonology of Barrett. And then Abaddon, because that one's saying, see the next one. It's a better spelling of the name. Abaddon. Abaddon. The demon king of the bottomless pit, as named in the book of Revelation 9:11. Abaddon. But sea angel and beast, the demons over whom Abaddon is said to be king emerge with the sounding of the fifth trump in heaven. They are like horses, their heads crowned with gold, and their faces like the faces of men, though with the hair of women and the teeth of lions. They are winged. The sound of their wings was as the sound of chariots running to battle, and they have tails like unto scorpions. With stings at the end, the name Abaddon is said to be from the Hebrew word abad. He perished. But in conventional demonology, the name is often translated as meaning destroyer. Probably because the Greek name for Abaddon is Apollyon, which means destroyer. The word is sometimes used as though it were an equivalent of the bottomless pit, sea abyss, itself, rather than of its demonic ruler. Abaddon is sometimes identified wrongly with Abaton, which is really an ancient Greek equivalent of a no-go area or a place difficult to reach. No-go area or a place difficult to reach. Anyway, well, that will do for now because I have finished the introduction in 3 parts. Until then, stay cool, relax, think, read books, read everything, read everyone, read the world. You live in it.